Hi, welcome back to Tiny Garage Fabrication. Today we're still working on the Datsun 620. Today's episode we're going to be working on the engine bay a little bit, clearing some stuff out, getting things cleaned up, making things look just a little bit better than they did before. But before we get into that, I want to give you a sneak peek at something that'll be coming up in a later episode. So that's just an initial prototype design. If you think you know what I got planned, please drop a comment down below. Okay, enough screwing around. Let's turn to. I began stripping the engine bay. I pulled the wiring harness, I pulled the cowl, the wipers, the heater hoses, all the little clips. I ended up taking the brake booster, master cylinder, the clutch master cylinder, basically everything that was removable, including all the little screws, the VIN number plate and everything, just so that I could get it prepped. And then sometimes once you're done, you just gotta look at it. Would you look at that? Just look at it. Next up was to go over everything with a rust and paint stripping wheel from Benchmark Abrasives. This thing was awesome. It powered through everything. It didn't mess up the metal, didn't leave any gouges or anything like that that I had to go through and regrind. Pretty cost effective, about $4 a wheel. Got a link to them down in the description. Highly recommend it for work like this. The only downside is that it's kind of big, so it doesn't get into the really small, tight places. Ended up having to do a lot of hand sanding. Now, in the pursuit of pseudo-perfection, I wanted to straighten out this little seam I got right here. It was just kind of bent every which way, so I decided that up was the way I wanted it to go. So, I made it go up. I started with some self-etching primer, and then I moved to some regular primer. Everything I used on here was from Rust-Oleum. Not sponsored or anything, it's just what I like. I think their product holds up really well. Under hood, under the car, on frames, I use Rust-Oleum for most things when I just need some paint that I can get pretty much anywhere. So as you can see, I'm sanding, and that's a theme that will not get old in this video. I straightened out this lower seam as well. Got some pliers and hammers in there and straightened it all out. I messed it up pretty good pulling the transmission out, as previous owners also have. Hopefully I don't whack into it again. Wind was getting really bad, so I pushed this inside to start spraying the color on. This color is called Satin Summer Squash. It seems to be close-ish to the original color of the truck, so I went with it. I really have no idea why I started on that one little piece first. I guess maybe I just wanted to see a big patch of it to see if that's really the color I wanted to go on this engine bay, but because it was pretty much the original color on the truck, it is what I went with. Air everything off, wipe it down with some denatured alcohol, get it ready for paint. And once again with a self-etch primer on all the bare metal, and then go over it with a gray primer. And very soon I'll go over it with the color. And then I did about 2 coats of primer each. I did 3 color coats, and then I did 2 to 3 clear coats on everything. And I went with a satin clear coat because I don't want it to be super glossy and crazy and wet looking, but it does look pretty nice. I'm happy the way it turned out. As you can see, this little square is still some absolute factory paint. You can kind of compare it to the rest, and I think I did a pretty good job on the match. Now here's the aftermath of my day's labor, to go with some sore fingers and also a headache. As you probably noticed, I didn't have my respirator on a few times. A couple flybys of the engine bay, looking real good. Now let's move on to something totally different. So here's the result of what I was printing and what they're doing. So it's got a nice little extension that'll go inside, nice little rounded edge for the outside, and these are going to go here and here. Now they're at 90 degrees because they just wouldn't quite fit if I align them the same direction. Go like that, go like that, and these are for the heater hoses. Got a nice tight fit there, and I do believe this looks better than just a rubber grommet. Rivet those in. Should be looking pretty good. Alright, that covers it for this episode. Got a lot of work done, doesn't really look like it, but taking apart everything in the engine bay took quite a bit of time. Sanding everything down, a lot of it was done off camera, but I sanded and sanded and sanded till my fingers hurt. And then throwing down a couple of coats of paint. The wind was not working in my favor, so there's a little bit of junk in the paint, but the paint job will definitely get overlooked once the engine is in place, because that thing's going to look super cool, and I've got a whole bunch of tricks for it. I feel like that's a great place to stop for this episode. Got a lot of painting done, did way too much sanding, my fingers hurt. I got some 3D printed stuff going on, and there will be a lot more of that in the future on this truck, as well as a lot more cool stuff done to the engine, just like that sneak peek from the beginning of the episode. Like always, thanks for spending a small part of your day with me. Stay safe, stay inside, do your part with social distancing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.